Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we are going to do a game discussion over a game that, well, there's no really other way to say it other than that it just completely and utterly blew me away. And that game is Deadly Premonition, the very definition of a diamond in the rough. This was released as a budget title by Ignition Entertainment. And it famously got a 2.0 from IGN, which then, I believe it was Destructoid, gave it a perfect 10. And then the reviews kind of stayed in that vein. Either it's a love it or hate it game, and I absolutely love this game. So much so that even though I own the 360 version, when the PS3 Director's Cut comes out, I'm going to be picking that up as well. I really wish I would have got this when it first came out and experienced it back then, because I am a huge, huge fan of Twin Peaks. And I know I said this with my Alan Wake video, and I'm going to take those words back. This is Twin Peaks, the video game. If you love that series, or if you just love... this is not really a survival horror game, but if you just love a good mystery game with incredibly weird characters and a strange scenario, you need to go pick this up. And it's one of those games that within the first hour, you're going to know whether you love it or hate it. There are some gameplay quirks that if you can't get around, I feel sorry for you, because I really think you're going to miss out on something special. But yeah, I could not believe how much fun I was having. I would dare say this might not be my favorite Xbox 360 game, but it's definitely in the running. And it's so crazy because the reviews out there are just so... I think it does hold the Guinness Book of World Records for the most divisive video game, if that's even a real thing to quantify. But just based on the reviews, really a divisive game. But personally, for me, I loved it, and I would wholeheartedly recommend it to anybody out there to give it a shot. But let's go ahead and get into it and talk about it a little bit. The game involves a FBI agent named Francis York Morgan heading to the small town of Greenvale to investigate this local grisly murder that just happened. This young girl named Anna is gutted and her tongue is ripped out, and she's basically crucified on a large tree in the woods. And she's found by these two young kids and their grandfather. And it sets off this... It starts off as a very cut and dry sort of police investigation. And when I say cut and dry, I mean once the story gets going, it goes off on this wild ride. But very, very reminiscent of Twin Peaks. That's exactly how the TV show starts. A young girl is mysteriously murdered, and an FBI agent comes in to help the local law enforcement. And yeah, I mean, all the characters have their individual quirks. I don't want to talk too much about the storyline, because I really want you guys... It's really something you need to experience on your own, because I didn't spoil myself for the story at all. I avoided walkthroughs and everything, and I was just completely blown away by the story. I think it's one of the best stories out there on the 360. I know I'm throwing a lot of really big claims out there, but I really hold this game in very high regard. But as you move through the town and you meet the locals, you get to explore them more in side quests and everything. But I really found a wonderful charm to the storyline. And for me, being a big Twin Peaks fan, I gotta stop saying Twin Peaks, but it really was a very wonderful homage to that series. But yeah, the storyline, at turns it's very creepy, at turns it's laugh out loud funny, and in turns it does get to be kind of sad. Once you sort of see the entire mechanization of everything that's going on and sort of the end result, it's got an ending that's going to stick with you. Especially when you get to the credits, watch until the end of the credits. because there's a little tag at the end there. But yeah, just from a pure storyline standpoint, this game is aces, man. It really kept me entertained, kept me on the edge of my seat to see what happened next. I absolutely love it. Where the game has some issues is in the gameplay mechanics themselves. This is a clunky game. There is no way to get around it. You know, it kind of harkens back in some ways. It's kind of a mix between Resident Evil 4 and the older Resident Evils. For the most part, when you're controlling Morgan, or York, everyone calls him York. When you're controlling York, it's from a behind-the-shoulder perspective, kind of like Resident Evil 4. When you aim your weapons, it's exactly like Resident Evil 4. But sometimes you'll be in a stage and you'll go around a corner and it'll throw like this, not a pre-rendered backdrop, but sort of that control mechanism, that tank control at you, and that will catch you up. What else? Oh, driving. The driving controls are very loosey-goosey in this. I mean, you're just gonna have to learn the controls, basically. I mean, it's a terrible thing to say, and they are fixing it for the PS3 version that's coming out, supposedly. But the controls take some getting used to, and you know, once you get your head around it, I really didn't have any problem anymore. I was able to drive my car relatively easy. I bought one of the faster cars, and it was like 80, 90 miles an hour down the road. And sometimes it gets a little hard to control, but you are driving 80, 90 miles an hour. So, yeah. But for the most part, the controls are a big issue for a lot of people, so I really want to get that out of the way starting off. But what you're going to find in this game is an open world. Basically what it is if you take Grand Theft Auto, Shenmue, and Twin Peaks, wrap them all up, and you know, there's what you get. Really a great and interesting gameplay mechanic. The town is open. You can go anywhere you want to in the town anytime, as long as you have the time to do it. So there's your Grand Theft Auto. You can buy cars in this game, so you can't steal cars, but you can buy cars and have like a fleet of cars to drive around town in style. The Shenmue thing comes in because everything runs on a schedule. The very few NPCs that you interact with, they have lives, and they move around town and do their thing. And, you know, certain side quests are only available during certain times. And, you know, at one point, that can get a little annoying, knowing that, you know, you only have a certain amount of in-game hours to complete this stuff. But the game gives you so much time to do it. The only real issue is actually finding the side quests themselves. Once you find them, usually you can complete them relatively easy within the time frame you need. Yeah, like I said, you know, the town runs on its own internal clock. So, you know, sometimes a character will be at the milk barn, the local convenience store. Sometimes they'll be at the bank. And you can use the in-game map to find them. They have little blue or purple people representing where the individual people are in the town. The only problem with this map is, it's not a problem when, well, no, it is when you bring it up in the menu. Basically what the map does, I'm going to use this as a representation of the map. Whatever direction York is facing, that's up on the map. So if you're driving around town and you turn your car down another road, the map does this. So that is a really stupid idea. I have to say that, because it makes navigating the town really hard until you get a really good feel for the town. What else is clunky about this game? Other than that, that's really, I mean, the controls are really what kind of throws people off, and maybe the graphics. We'll talk about that in a minute. But there's just a lot of amazing stuff that they threw into this game. And reading an interview by the creator of the game, Swery, he wanted to throw even more stuff in. Like, if you don't shave when you wake up in the mornings, York will grow a beard. If you don't change your clothes and get them cleaned, flies will start buzzing around him, and he'll stink, and people won't like him. all this crazy stuff. He has to eat. He has to sleep or drink coffee, to stay awake. Really zany stuff that you wouldn't find in a normal survival horror game. And it really is part of the charm of this game that you have to do this stuff. When you get into mainly the game, it takes place in a normal town, but occasionally it'll go into what's called the other world, like Silent Hill. And there's where you fight your monsters and stuff. And all these shadows, is what they're called in the game, are really creepy and really nice. And they all have Glasgow smiles. And when they come after you, they don't like chase after you like this. They actually turn their back to you, bend over backwards, and come after you like that. Very creepy stuff. But as you move through these sort of otherworld portions, sometimes you get attacked by the Raincoat Killer himself, right here. And it involves another Shenmue thing, the QuickTime event. And these can get a bit tedious, but if you fail them, you don't die, you just lose health until, of course, your health is that low. But they can get a bit tedious at times, and but I found them to be really kind of thrilling in a way, because it really removes, how do I want to put it? It removes your control over the situation in a lot of ways. And you're just kind of sitting there watching this cutscene, and all of a sudden this button combination comes up. You're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And it really puts you on the edge of your seat and really kind of brings you into that that scenario. There are portions where you have to hide from the Raincoat Killer. These are really kind of cool in one hand, but on the other hand, they are just kind of underutilized. Basically, you crawl into like a cabinet, and the Raincoat Killer kind of stalks around the room, and then at certain points you have to hold in the left trigger to hold your breath. You know, I mean, it's something that they could have maybe implemented a little bit more creatively, but it's also something that, I don't know, it was just kind of cool that, oh, he's right there, I have to hold my breath, it's kind of funny. But yeah, from the gameplay standpoint, this is kind of a kitchen sink game, and not everything, sticks to the wall, but the controls are clunky, but there's just so much other stuff to do, so many side quests, so many things to see in Greenvale. It really is kind of it kind of gets a pass for me on the gameplay, or the controls, I should say, because everything else in the gameplay is really quite awesome. The graphics, this is another big stick-up point for a lot of people. No easy way to say this. The game is pretty ugly. Low-res textures. When you look at trees, they look like trees out of Mario 64. The character models aren't bad, especially Morgan and Emily. Their character models are very nicely detailed. But everything else in the game is kind of drab, which is supposed to be a small, Pacific Northwest town. But everything's just kind of muddy. When you get up close to things, the textures just don't look good, especially when you're driving around town and you see like the grass and just how empty the town is. A lot of people have a problem with that, and I understand. It does kind of look like a PS2 game in a lot of respects, but there's so much more to this game than just kind of the ugly graphics. Now, for the I just watched an interview about the director's cut. Basically, they're kind of upgrading the textures and the shadowing a bit, because there is this weird effect where like the lighting will hit faces the wrong way, and the eyes will look like they're glowing, and the teeth will look all blacked out. It kind of adds to the creepiness in a way, but I don't think it was intentional. I think it's just a lighting problem. But they're supposed to be fixing the textures and the shadowing, and they're supposed to be upping the resolution to 1080p, because this is only, a 720? This is only really a 720 game. So they're going to up it to 1080p for the PS3. What else? There was something else about the graphics, the facial expressions. Sometimes the people look really, really grotesque. The mouths don't match the voice acting. And sometimes the facial expressions just look like there's a smile that York does where he's like, it's just way over exaggerated. But, I guess it kind of adds to the creepy, weird feeling that the game gives you. And but it does kind of take you out the first time you see it, like, wow, that's really bad animation. But by the fourth or fifth time, it's part of the charm of the game in a lot of ways. And finally breaking this game down, the music. Again, this is something that a lot of people have problems with. Sometimes the music doesn't really fit the situation, but I think that note of discord was completely intentional. And when I think back on the game, it's entirely correct, because that's the kind of stuff you remember from this. Is that, remember that really scary scene that had like the really kind of bright and cheery music playing underneath of it? It's stuff like that. There are a lot of great tracks in this game. I don't know if there's a soundtrack out there for it. I kind of want to go find it if there is. But yeah, it really gets that sort of, again, that Twin Peakness weirdness out there, especially with like when you go into the Red Room and you have that jazzy sort of motif playing in the background, just like in Twin Peaks. There's a very sad, somber piano piece that plays. The very good music in here. It's not going to set your world on fire or anything, but in the context of the game, it works really well, except for one song, and that's when you're playing as Emily chasing around the dog Willie. I don't know where the hell that song came from, and it really kind of takes you out of the game, but again, that's part of its charm. So, yeah. I hope all that made sense. I don't know. This is a really hard game to talk about, because there's just so much in it. And if I really sat down and if I wrote a script out for this discussion, this could be an hour-long discussion, because it's just one of those games you have to go out and get. I mean, you can find it for like $17 at GameStop. It seems like it's getting harder to find, because I saw a copy of it at my GameStop, but it had like a black box, not the green box, and didn't have a manual. And other than that, I had to order this off the internet. I haven't seen one anywhere. So I don't know if it's really that hard to find, but the PS3 version is coming out with a lot of fixes to the controls and bug issues and things like that. But man, guys, I'm telling you what, if you're looking for a very unique experience, Deadly Premonition, you have to get it. If you like survival horror type games, if you like mystery type games, if you just love fucked up Japanese views on American culture, get this game. I can't give it any higher recommendation than what I'm getting it. I would say everyone needs to try it. Just try it. If you don't like it, trade it back in. Who cares? But I think everyone needs to give it a shot. And it's one of those cult classics. That's what it is. It's a video game cult classic. People have played this and love it. Can't speak highly enough about it. So I'm going to stop going on and on about this game, because I need to try to get out of Greenvale. I don't think I'll be able to leave for quite some time, but I'm really looking forward to getting the director's cut and playing through this again and seeing there is going to be slight changes to the story, and I'm really excited to see what those are. But yeah, guys, Deadly Premonition. If I got this game, I don't even know when this thing came out. Where's a date on this? 2010. If I was doing YouTube in 2010, this would probably be my 2010 game of the year, because I loved it. So anyway, guys, that is it. Deadly Premonition is in the can. I don't know what I'm going to play next. I have no idea. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Take care. I'll see you next time.